Welcome back to our YouTube channel, People Safety Junction. Why are confined spaces considered hazardous? What are the primary risks associated with confined spaces? What safety measures must be taken before entering a confined space? What role does continuous monitoring play in confined space entry? So let's get started. Confined spaces pose unique risks in industrial settings, making it essential to understand their characteristics, proper entry procedures, and the critical safety measures involved. Through this discussion, we'll explore the fundamentals of confined spaces, the importance of a well-structured confined space entry (CSE) program, the role of permits in ensuring safety, and the responsibilities of personnel in maintaining a secure working environment. Confined space, CSE. A confined space is any space or structure which is large enough to allow workers to enter and perform work, has limited or restricted means of entry or exit, is not designed for human occupancy, contains or has the possibility to contain a hazardous atmosphere, and contains any other recognized serious safety or health hazards. Examples of confined spaces includes columns, vessels, storage tanks, pipelines, valve boxes, manholes, ventilation ducts, boilers, steam generators, heat exchangers, sievers, sumps, pits, barge compartments, and excavations, at least 4 feet deep. Certain confined spaces may be designed for very limited entry. Examples include manholes, siever systems, cargo holds, barge compartments, and shafts and tunnels. A confined space may not necessarily be enclosed on all sides and may have open tops. Examples include WUTs, storage towers, floating roofs of large tanks, trenches, excavations, pits, culverts and sumps. A space may become a confined space due to the work or due to a change in the conditions inside. For example, spray painting in an enclosed room can create a hazardous atmosphere. Also, asbestos work in an enclosed room and sealed with plastic drapes can create a hazardous atmosphere. Also, unventilated or poorly ventilated spaces, storage areas and voids may be oxygen deficient or may develop a hazardous atmosphere. Confined space entry, CSE. A confined space entry is when anyone puts any part of their body through the opening of the space. Entry also includes all periods of time when the confined space is occupied. For example, putting your head into a tank opening or manhole is an entry. When work tasks require you to enter into a confined space, you must follow CSE procedures and a confined space entry permit must be issued before work can begin. Confined space entry has many hazards that must be eliminated or controlled. The CSE program, the permit system and the responsibilities of individuals are an essential part of ensuring that entry into hazardous spaces can be undertaken safely. Confined space entry program. Your organization and all contractors for grassroots projects must develop and implement a CSE program, which must include but not be limited to the following. Proponent department's local program. Identify confined spaces. Identify hazards of confined spaces. Developing confined space entry plans. Training requirements and qualifications. Rescue procedures. The image is a table outlining the conditions for confined space entry based on the levels of various gases. It has 5 key columns. Confined space entry. Oxygen levels. Flammable combustible mixtures. Carbon monoxide concentration. And hydrogen sulfide concentration. The table is divided into 3 entry conditions. In first condition, confined space entry is permitted without wearing an atmosphere-supplying respirator, when oxygen levels at or above 20% and less than or equal to 23.5%. Flammable mixtures below 5% of the lower explosive limit. Carbon monoxide concentration below 35 ppm. Hydrogen sulfide concentration below 10 ppm. In second condition, confined space entry is permitted only with continuous use of an atmosphere-supplying respirator, when oxygen levels below 20%. Flammable mixtures between 5% and 10% of the LEL. Carbon monoxide levels between 35 ppm and 1000 ppm. Hydrogen sulfide levels between 10 ppm and 100 ppm. In third condition, no confined space entry permitted, when oxygen levels above 23.5%. Flammable mixtures at or above 10% of the LEL. Carbon monoxide levels at or above 1000 ppm. Hydrogen sulfide levels at or above 100 ppm. This table helps establish clear guidelines for safe confined space entry, ensuring workers understand hazardous atmospheric conditions. Now we will see about CSE Permit. CSE Permit. A confined space entry permit shall be issued prior to entry into a confined spaces. The purpose of the confined space entry permit is to ensure proper preparation of confined spaces prior to entry, safe entry by personnel, including provisions for rescue, restoration of confined spaces. Work activities inside a confined space may require a hot or cold work permit to be issued in combination with the confined space entry permit. The completed work permits, that is, confined space entry permit and hot work, confined space warning signs and barricades, shall be posted outside the confined space to notify personnel that a confined space entry is in progress and to prohibit entry by unauthorized personnel. Now we will learn the responsibilities of personnel involved in confined space work activity. Roles and responsibilities. A. Issuer and receiver roles. Work permit issuers and receivers must make sure that all work task hazards are identified and controlled, eliminated. Hazard control requirements are recorded on the work permit and become a condition for starting work. If you are the work permit issuer, you must identify which permits are required, identify and document hazards and precautions on the permit. Additional approvals, signatures shall be required for renewed, extended work permits. Conduct a joint site inspection with the receiver using the hazard analysis checklist on the back of the work permit form. B. Management roles. Proponent management must develop and implement a CSE program that complies with client requirements. Management responsibilities include: develop a CSE program, develop and review CSE plans, identify training and qualifications, restrict confined space entry to trained personnel, designate confined space entry supervisors, CSEs, provide equipment required for safe confined space entry, mandate training, conduct drills and emergency scenarios. C. Confined space entry supervisor. The confined space entry supervisor, CSEs, is a work permit issuer or someone who has been assigned by an issuer and directs all aspects of the confined space entry. Confined space entry supervisor responsibilities include: decides if conditions are acceptable for entry, authorizes entry, supervises entry operations, stops entry if required, reviews entry plan, communicates plan with entrants and standby men, implementation of permits and plans, training of entrants and standby men, designates trained standby men, generally issues CSE permits, provides manpower and coordinate activities of multiple crews, checks isolation, purging and gas test results, monitors confined space activity, ensures logs are completed, ensures PPE is provided and used, provides communications equipment, provides immediate response equipment. D. Standby man. A standby man is the worker who is responsible for monitoring the internal and external activities associated with work in and around a confined space. He is generally stationed at entry points to the confined space near to where the work is taking place. This worker acts as the eyes and ears of the entrance in the confined space. Does not leave the entry point. Never enters the confined space. Primary responsibility, no other duties. Note: in some specific cases the standby man may also be assigned as a fire watch for the confined space activity. Standby man responsibilities include: reviews the entry plan and permits, understands possible hazards, maintains entry log, monitors activities inside and outside the confined space, maintains two-way communication, notifies personnel in the event of an emergency. Standby man could order entrants to evacuate when an unsafe condition develops. An entrant displays unusual behavior effects from hazard exposure. The standby man has to leave the area and no relief is provided. The entrants must evacuate the space. E. Entrant. A confined space entrant is anyone who is trained to enter a confined space to perform work. This includes entering for light tasks such as visual inspection or taking measurements. An entrant must understand the hazards, precautions, responsibilities and emergency procedures for the job. An entrant has perhaps the most hazardous task on a CSE job. The entrant must enter the confined space, so must be fully prepared for the job. They must know and follow all safety requirements for the job and know how to communicate with standby personnel. An entrant's responsibilities include: reviewing all permits, reviews the entry plan, checks work and site preparation, understands potential hazards in the confined space, trained on use of PPE, Maintains communication with standby man. Alerts the standby man and other entrants to exit when A. Order to evacuate is given. B. Warning signs or symptoms of exposure start to develop. C. Emergency alarm is activated. Entrance never enters inside confined space until A. Safety requirements are in place. B. Clearly understands the work assignment. Thanks for your time. Scan QR code and subscribe to our YouTube channel People's Safety Junction to get updated videos. Learn more, grow more.